Good afternoon. This is Alan Gassman, and it is October 8th, Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. Time for lunch and time to learn about reverse mortgages. And I am very pleased to have my friend Elena Katsulos here with me to tell me all the stuff I get wrong when I talk to you about reverse mortgages today, because Elena is a very experienced reverse mortgage broker and a very, very conscientious one. I want to mention that we are going to do a deeper dive on reverse mortgages, so if you want to learn more about the technicalities and roll the sleeves up and look at some numbers and talk about some spreadsheets, Elena's going to rejoin us, and she'll lead us October 22nd at 12:30 p.m., and that'll be for 30 minutes. Also, October 27th, 5 p.m., Leslie Scher is going to be back with us. We're going to talk about U.S. tax and compliance issues for Americans who live abroad. You can run, but you can't hide. Les's special talents, besides understanding all of this technical information, is explaining it in very clear and easy to understand terms. So if you've never heard Les talk, you'll definitely want to join us for that. Also, immediately after, at 5:30 p.m., we're going to talk about Les's favorite technique for resident aliens, that's non-U.S. people who invest in Florida real estate. It's an irrevocable trust structure that he spoke about in our last webinar. He's going to cut right to the chase. It's going to be very interesting at 5:30, October 27th. Back to Elena Katsulos to give you a little bit of information. She's a longtime native of Pinellas County. She comes from a very well-respected family. She's involved with a lot of really good and important local structures. And she's not someone calling your clients from a boiler room because they responded to a Fred Thompson or a Fonzie advertisement, which is what we have found mostly happens. We have been studying reverse mortgages extensively in the past few months at the request of Jerry Hesh, who has me speaking on this topic at the Notre Dame Tax Institute in November, and I've learned a lot, and I have to admit I don't like a lot about a lot of the things that I did learn. So if maybe 2 out of 10 people who get a reverse mortgage actually need one, hopefully they have somebody responsible like you looking at it, and somebody responsible like Elena making sure that they choose the right one, because this can be a very, very complicated process. Now, by definition, a mortgage, of course, is where the lender loans you money and then you start making payments immediately. In a reverse mortgage, the lender owes you money, and you don't owe the money back until the money is sold, the home is sold, or you no longer live there for more than 12 months, or the borrower dies, or most importantly, the borrower can't keep up with the real estate taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance. And when the husband and wife are joint borrowers, then typically this doesn't get triggered until they're both out of the house, or they can't keep up with the taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So the way you would typically look at this, instead of you paying the lender every month on a mortgage, the lender will pay you every month for a term of years or for the rest of your life. And no matter what happens, as long as you keep up the insurance, the taxes, and the maintenance, and you stay in that home, you cannot get kicked out of the home, and you're going to get this payment, which may be for the rest of your life, which sounds like a great thing. In other words, if the mortgage goes upside down, if you owe more than the home is worth, then you get to stay in that home, and when you die, they cannot go after your family for any money because of the federal program that's involved. This federal program came about in 1988. The first loans were made in 1989 under the Reagan administration, and for a lot of homeowners, this has been a good thing. I've mentioned pretty much how the terms of a reverse mortgage work, but you can read page 9 later if you like. And here's the different types of reverse mortgage loans. There's 3 main types, and then of course there's hybrids. The first is the line of credit, and this is reportedly what most people use, and basically what most people apparently do, and I don't think that this is advisable, but they tell the lender, how much can I borrow right now, give me all the money I can get, and then you'll be paid back by the sale of my home when I die. And I'll use that money to pay for my daughter's wedding, or to fix the house up, or to invest in the stock market, who knows what. And Elena's shaking her head no, because that's an abuse. No. That's an abuse, right?
It is an abuse.
It's an abuse, but that's what a lot of people have done. That's what you want to encourage your clients not to do. The other kind of line of credit is kind of neat. That kind of line of credit is you take the line and you don't actually borrow on it. You might get a little bit of money, but what you get in exchange for the lending fees that you pay initially is a promise from the lender and from the U.S. government that you can borrow on this house in the future, even if its value goes down, even if you have terrible credit, you can borrow, and that can give some peace of mind to retirees. Like I said, gives me better peace of mind if they don't actually borrow very much. Now the next kind is the 10-year loan, and that means for life. 10-year is a Latin word for life, and that means that in my example, a 79-year-old with a home could say to the lender, how much can I get a year from the rest of my life as loans that I don't have to repay during my lifetime, and that never have to be repaid except with the equity of my house. And for this 79-year-old with a $190,000 house, we were told that he and his wife could get $8,000 a year. If they live 100 years, they'll have $8 million that they will have borrowed on this home. They probably won't live 100 years, but if they live 20 years, they'll have received $160,000 plus all the interest accrued, and they'll still be in that home. So that's the 10-year loan. The other kind of loan is the fixed-term loan, and under the fixed-term loan, you agree to borrow a certain amount a year for a certain number of years. They're going to give you more a year for the fixed-term loan than the 10-year loan, but of course the money runs out. Well, a lot of clients, let's say you're 62 years old, you want a cash flow for the next 15 years, but you've heard that usually when people hit 77, 78, they're not as active, and hopefully the kids can help out. So that would be an example of a fixed-term loan. Now, once you pick the type of loan you want, then you have to pick the interest rate structure and the cost structure. And basically, you can get a fixed interest rate loan, which are right now just under 5%, pretty much rounded to 5%. And then in addition to the interest that you pay to the lender, you pay the FHA HUD 1.25% per year payment, which goes to FHA HUD, and they use that money to stay solvent because they're the ones who pay the excess of the loan amount over the equity in the home when the person dies or has to leave and can't pay the loan back with the equity of the home. So that's the fixed rate loan. Then, of course, as you can imagine, there are floating rate loans. And here's some examples for that same married couple, age 79, with a $190,000 house. They could go 4.99% fixed with $6,767 in closing costs, which is a lot of closing costs. I guess that's what pays the guy on the phone who talks them into it, and the counselor and other things.
Well, your higher fee is your FHA premium, which is based on the home value. So that's your eyesore, typically. The rest are normal closing
costs.
That's
2%, I think, the FHA fee?
Give or take a little bit, yes.
Okay. Another option they had was 2.935% floating, but could not go up by more than 2% a year, or could not go up beyond 7.935%. Closing costs would be higher, $92.34. Another option was 3.56 floating, couldn't go up by more than 2% annually, capped at 8.560, closing costs $59.34, so you'd have lower closing costs. Then you could go 3.656 floating, not more than 2% a year, capped at 13%. That would really scare me. That would really scare me. That means don't worry about the house because it'll be gone if rates fly up.
Right, and let me just mention one thing, Alan. There is a new product where it is an annual adjustment, so the cap is a lot less. So we can go into that deeper that next go-around.
Right.
So it is more attractive.
Right, and of course, using somebody like Elena, you can compare lenders as well.
In rates, correct.
Right, right. So obviously, they want to use an advisor to look and see what kind of interest rate to expect, and to look at the situation concerning loan costs. Now, when you are in default, you can lose the house. You have to correct the default or pay off the debt with default rate interest, legal expenses, and lender costs, or sell the property, apply the net proceeds to the loan. So, deed in lieu of foreclosure. And get this, the last time anyone published or kept track, the default rate was 9% of outstanding loans. That, to me, is a national travesty. Now, maybe there's 9% who are having really good stories, but that I'm a taxpayer and that people are paying 1.25% into a government fund, and then as the taxpayers have to pay the rest when these loans go upside down, that's what upsets me.
And it is upsetting. Unfortunately, when people have received reverse mortgages in the past, the saying is, well, I have a reverse mortgage, I don't have to pay my taxes and insurance. And then they go into default, they lose their home, and then they're in the front of the St. Pete Times. So it's not the fact that the reverse mortgage did it, they did.
People do it to themselves.
Correct.
It allows people to be childish.
Thank you.
Fred Thompson's commercial. There's a really good report from a Congressman, Mark Tanaka, from California, and I found it to be extremely convincing of the problems with reverse mortgages. And he does criticize Senator Fred Thompson's failure to mention that reverse mortgages can impact eligibility for Medicaid, cause loss of Social Security income benefits. He doesn't mention taxes, insurance, or property taxes. The testimonials say this doesn't cost anything, you won't lose anything, at the end of the day you'll be pleasantly surprised. Again, I think it's just a national travesty. Obviously he and this company AHE are making a lot of money, and I wish them well, but it would be nice if they would do this in another country other than ours. The reference to the April 24th, 2014 report from Mark Takano, it's called Reverse Mortgages, Senior Housing Bubble Held Together by Glue and Tax Dollars. That probably says enough for now. I've got more information on there. As of September of 2012, there were 770,000 reverse mortgages issued in our country, all to people who are age 62 or older. The other thing that I found that was very interesting is that the average lender is making half of their money on the loan costs and the other half of the money by immediately selling the reverse mortgages to institutional investors who pay 10% above the amount loaned. So it's a really good deal for the lender, and unless you're careful, it may not be a good deal for the borrower.
Be cautious of origination fees because there is an extreme difference between lender. I typically charge a little bit of origination fee just to cover your income, but some of them are charging full-blown origination fees, and personally my take is I don't believe it's necessary.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
So what we've done to learn more about this, and we'll be glad to send you our Excel spreadsheet if we didn't already, is we've designed an Excel spreadsheet, and this is just using the basic Excel software, which can show your client how much they get, how much they're paying in interest, because people don't understand how interest piles up, and where the equity of their home ends up. And the lines we have at the bottom, the top blue line is assuming the home will grow at 4% interest. And homes in Pinellas County, most of Florida, have grown more at 3% interest, minus repair costs. So this is optimistic if anything. The next line, the green line, is the loan balance. And you can see that the loan balance really goes up because of the interest, because the next line is the payments received. So you see this person up until age 87 receives these payments, and then they don't get any more payments. Green line above it, the interest really piles up and takes the equity away. The next line with is the assumed net equity in the home, which is not that happy of a story. But if you're watching out for the and this assumes that interest rates won't go up. This is a low interest. This is a 2.37% over LIBOR floating loan, assuming that interest rates don't go up. And I have other scenarios here, and we're going to look at them when we go through the deeper dive. But Elena, what in particular, if you're running the numbers, what in particular do you look at or tell a client or advisor to look at?
Well, each client's different. Each scenario is different. But the most common client I get is someone who's wanting to pay off a mortgage so they can have additional cash flow. So what they're always concerned is, well, my mortgage payment is, say, $1,000 a month. So total 12 months, I'm putting out $12,000. So they're saying, well, how can it save me money? Well, if you look at if we can run an amortization schedule, we can say, okay, the interest that's going to accrue the first year through the 5th year through the 10th year, you're still out of pocket spending less money. So we typically look at that. A lot of the clients who do not have a mortgage are putting this in place for the line of credit and are very attracted to the growth rate because it's averaging about 4%, give or take, per year. So everyone's situation is different, whether it's health care, a safety net, home health care, which is huge right now, and out of pocket leaving a local hospital. So
right. And I guess people who don't have good credit can still borrow on their home?
Currently, they can. We anticipate financial assessment coming. It's been a 4-year process. We anticipated it being implemented this October. Well, October's come already and gone. So we're waiting for that to come into play. And they will review credit. They might use the VA residual income table. We're not sure of all the specifics, but we anticipate they will be looking at the overall picture of the couple or individual.
All right. So in about 3 minutes, let me tell you a few other things. What are the alternatives to reverse mortgages? Number one, just don't borrow. Live within your means. Have plenty of insurance so you don't have surprise problems. Number two, downsize. I'm concerned that a lot of Americans are just staying in homes that are more home than they need and, downsize. I mean, I saw one financial planner sent me an example where somebody with a $600,000 home and $600,000 of investments was going to live the next 20 years by using a reverse mortgage. And I said, why aren't they in a $150,000 home with $450,000 more of investments? So that's an important conversation to have. Number three, borrow privately. We have a family situation where we're loaning money at 3% to somebody who would have otherwise gotten a reverse mortgage. 3% is pretty good for us. It's better than our bond portfolio is paying. And 3% is really good for them because they don't have any loan closing costs. And fourth, maybe sell the home, set aside money to pay rent. I mean, a lot of Americans, a lot of my clients, I must admit, would be better off in an independent living facility than all alone in a big 2-story house, which is where they're stuck if they have a reverse mortgage and they've run a lot of interest up. And Elena's nodding her head and agreeing.
I'm agreeing, yes.
That these things are happening.
Each situation.
Right. So a few other things in the couple minutes I have left here. Again, it's just important that people do rational, appropriate planning. Unexpected cost of the home. I met with a client yesterday who wanted her son to inherit her home, and I said, do you realize how much your home is going to cost to maintain when you die? It's going to cost $36,000 a year on average. And she said, well, my son doesn't have that kind of money. So I said, then why do you want him to inherit your home? I mean, people just don't understand what it costs to maintain a home, especially widows after their husband dies, if they're talked into buying a reverse mortgage and they have no idea what it really costs to sell the home. Then the Medicaid eligibility, this is another thing. Your home would be your last free and clear asset that Medicaid can't take. They can't lien it. Your family can inherit your home. So you want to spend just about everything else first before you exhaust the equity in your home if you think you may have to go on Medicaid. That's just another. And then the loss of SSI benefits, I'm not going to get into it, but SSI measures at the end of the month. So if you borrow money on a reverse mortgage, you better spend it all before the end of the month if you don't want to lose your SSI, or you're going to have big problems. There's a lot of SSI data in our outline. Right now, there's a tremendous number of lawsuits going on. By the way, this is the interest rate history of the prime rate and the LIBOR rate at page 38, showing you that right now we are at a historic low. This is not a time for an elderly person to be borrowing on other than a fixed rate loan if they need the economic stability. Okay, I'm also going to mention that you have to go to counseling in order to get one of these loans. But there was a study done in 2012 where 15 counseling sessions were observed by the federal government. and the rate of counseling sessions that were done properly by the counselor was a perfect 0%. They couldn't find one counselor who actually did the proper counseling. So we're going to take a deeper dive on reverse mortgages. Elena's going to lead it when we do this, so it's going to be much more positive than what you heard from me today. She's going to give you the other side. Thank you very much for joining us. If you need copies of the webinar, if you haven't received it, please let us know. Also, if you would like to see our Notre Dame Institute outline on reverse mortgages, I'll be glad to send it to you. I'm looking for critiques. I want to be educated, criticized, and kicked. We hope you enjoyed this. Please keep in mind October 27th, tax compliance issues affecting Americans abroad, and also planning techniques for non-resident aliens who invest in Florida real estate. Have a fantastic end of the day, and may the rest of your time be billable right up through the cocktail hour. Thank you, Elena, for joining us and for teaching me. All right. Goodbye.